Welcome to the White Spring Bunker. These halls were built to safeguard some of the most prestigious members of the United States government. Now we are all that remains, though we are always looking for men and women capable of helping us restore what has been lost. In return, we offer this, our refuge from the world above. Please, take your time and look around. We've made great efforts to restore this place to its former glory. Welcome, member, to our little enclave.
Welcome back, members. As always, I am the Operative, your designated tour guide and host here at the White Spring. Appalachia is changing. The opening of Vault 76 was merely the beginning. The former Vault residents faced a homecoming far different than they had expected. But the spirit of 76 endures. New settlements now dot the landscape from the Toxic Valley to the Ash Heap, and MODUS has been watching. For Major Lilith, she is faced with a new mission and a homecoming of her own, to uncover the secrets of her father's research, and what she finds leads to an even larger mystery of the history of post-war Appalachia. And finally, Stein pays a visit to MODUS. He has questions. However, will the AI provide the answers he wants to hear?
Long gone are the days where people sing about West Virginia as almost heaven. After nuclear war and disease, it's far from heaven now. Far from Heaven, a Fallout 76 story podcast, is a tale of survival, conflict and hope set in the Fallout 76 game world. Join our survivors on their journey to reach that almost heaven once more. Available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon and many other great podcasting apps. Far from Heaven, a Fallout 76 story, available now.
Lilith moves silently down the hillside, marking the demarcation between the Savage Divide and the Mire. Up ahead was an old pre-war shack, once known as Toxic Larry's Meet and Go.
Been this way before. If those holotapes I found were right, old Larry and I would have had a lot in common. The man did have style, and a real sense of fresh meat.
She could hear some shuffling in the distance, a sure sign of snallygasters. Those mutations frequented these parts, with an affinity for the old shack. Maybe it was just her experience living in the wasteland, but Lilith felt it might be some deeper connection that helped her sense when FEV-mutated creatures were about. Peering around a tree, she had a clear view of the ramshackle wooden structure.
And I was right again. 2, maybe 3 of those snallies around. Betcha Val would be telling me to just go around. But I'm hungry. And I haven't killed anything in a couple of days. That just won't do.
She brought her silenced combat rifle up to her shoulder and took careful aim. 3 short bursts is all it took, as each tore into the heads of the creatures. Lilith watched their death rattles as they dropped to the ground. She walked over to the bodies, laughed as one of them was still twitching, its legs moving back and forth like it was trying to run away.
Best to start cutting now, before that acid drips all over everything and ruins the meat.
Putting the rifle away, she took out her blade and knelt next to the creature. Cutting into its flesh, she alternated between vertical and horizontal strokes to get the best meat, careful to miss the acid sacs just underneath the jawline. It wasn't the best food in Appalachia, but it would do in a pinch. Eating some and then stuffing the rest in her sack, Lilith wiped her bloody hands on her uniform pants before starting back down the incline. She'd been pissed when Val told her she wouldn't be going to Morgantown with the rest of the team. She so badly wanted to go, just to see old Bobby Stoller again. Well, his grave anyway. But Valeria made it clear that they were playing nice, and Lilith's presence might cause problems. She wanted to punch a hole in the wall until Val told her what she wanted her to do instead.
We want you to go home, Lilith. Modus believes he's found your father's lab.
I nearly jumped for joy when Val told me. She'd been sending me out to track down information about West Tech. I played just a bit dumb. A little game of my own. Though Val is smart enough to have seen through it, I'm sure. I found bits and pieces here and there. Some I shared, some I kept. Because I know what Val and Modus are looking for. I'm a walking, talking science experiment. The result of my fucking father's exposing me to FEV when I was 6 months old. It wasn't any old version of the virus either, as I didn't blow up into one of those colossal green idiots. Instead, it made me different, stronger, smarter, and a hell of a lot more dangerous. When my parents found out just how dangerous, well, it was far too late. Killed them too. Oh, and the hunger too. I got to eat. Doesn't really matter what. Ghouls, super mutants, scorched, and, well, people too. The fresher, the better. Don't really care what the others think. They scare so easy. And it means I get to do what I want. Val understands, though. She's a lot like me. Vicious, smart, and she scares people too. Closest thing I'll ever have to a family. Stein, well, he's a crazy old man, but the good kind of crazy. I still owe him for saving Val, too. Helps that he makes one hell of an explosive. Appreciates the art of the big boom. Modus? Yeah, I know he has plans, too. He had Val watch over me, and she passed along suggestions on where I should go next. Bet he thinks I don't know. Or don't know much. But I always was a whiz around a terminal. Disabling the security feeds without him knowing, that took skill. And a lot of work. Once I saw the files, the reports, well, as long as I get what I want, Modus can get what he wants too. And Val, she wants order and to rebuild. That's fine with me. I don't need the competition. The Enclave's got the best toys, and Val lets me have so much fun. Well, as long as I keep it out of the bunker. But there can only be one alpha predator in Appalachia. And I'm going to make sure that it's me. So here I am, going home. Well, to where my parents lived anyway, before the war, before Vault 76. They mattered only as much as they were the first people I killed. Well, and dear old Dad for making me this way too.
Modus had spent a significant amount of time tracking her parents, or more specifically, her father's movements before the war. Most of the data sources had either been destroyed or damaged in the intervening years, so reconstruction was a long process, with many gaps. Luckily, an Enclave team had struck gold when they raided the old Sugar Grove DIA facility, and found an almost intact data archive from the regional surveillance program. With that data, Modus was able to pinpoint their family home, and also identify several candidate locations for an off-site lab that her father may have kept away from his office at the West Tech facility. So while Val played nice with the folks at the Morgantown airport, she was supposed to track down her parents' old house, check for anything related to the FEV project, and see if she could find dear old Dad's lab. Lilith dropped down next to one of the old mansions just north of the town proper. It looked like an old castle, just like the ones in the old history holotapes they showed in school. There was a set of scaffolding in the back, leading up to the roof, so she climbed up to get a better look at the town before proceeding.
What a shithole.
Berkeley Springs had been a popular tourist town before the war. In the aftermath, the local authorities attempted to control the growing chaos and tsunami of medical needs of the surrounding population, but ultimately they failed, and the town was abandoned. Since then, the town had changed hands multiple times. Raiders, super mutants, and finally Scorched were just a few of the groups who pillaged and or operated out of the town over the past 25 years. Overlooking the area, Lilith could see various Scorched wandering through the streets. There was also a central building, maybe the town hall, where someone had set up turrets for defense. Based on MODUS's calculations, the house she was looking for was in the eastern portion, beyond the town center.
Damn. Easy enough to snipe those stupid Scorched from here. But where's the fun in that? Lots of buildings down there, debris, places to hide. Just because I'm on a mission doesn't mean I can't have a little fun, right?
Lilith slipped into town, using the rubble piles and wrecked cars for cover. She'd hone her skills on carving up the Scorched. Most times she was able to sneak up on them before they realized she was there. Although they were heavily infected, their internal organs were still in the same place, and they died just as easy, as one slipped the knife past the burnt and encrusted skin. She cut through more than a half dozen of the infected, saving a souvenir here and there. Avoiding the main central building, she cut down a side alley towards the street she was looking for, and found another group of Scorched walking in the other direction.
Ah, Leslie, there you are. Come speak to me this instant. You gave me quite a fright. You are never to run off without permission again. You had me quite worried, and I cannot even imagine what your parents would think.
Ugh, crap. You've got to be kidding me.
Lilith cursed as she turned around and saw a beat-up Miss Nannybot floating towards her. And unfortunately, the half-dozen Scorched all turned as well, reacting to the noise and bringing out their weapons and hissing in her direction.
If you ignore me, your parents will certainly hear of this.
The bot kept chasing after her. Lilith had to dodge out of the way as the Scorched started firing at her. She pulled out her SMG, brought along for emergencies, and returned fire, mowing down two of the creatures in a spray of gore.
Come now, Leslie. This is no time for games.
The floating Miss Nannybot kept blocking her view and spoiling her aim. The only good thing was the cover it provided, as bullets bounced off its metal casing.
Get the hell out of my way, you bucket of rust!
Children, such vile things.
Lilith ducked under the bot while reloading and fired the entire magazine into the remaining Scorched, killing them all. Standing up, she turned back to face the Nannybot.
Miss Chloe needs some peace and quiet. Perhaps a nap would be best. Now, run along.
That sounds like a wonderful idea. God, I fucking hate robots.
She sighed and went back to check on the bodies to make sure they were dead. Despite the commotion, the rest of the Scorched were still wandering the area of the main building. Experience showed that they were quick to react to immediate threats, but tended to ignore anything outside of their visual range. Lilith grabbed a couple of quick souvenirs from the dead and made her way back up the street. Although not large, the houses were decently sized and had been owned mostly by upper-middle-class families before the war. The one she was looking for was near the end of the block, and when she arrived in front of it, she almost burst out laughing.
You've got to be kidding me. A white picket fence, even? Bet the neighbors never realized Dad was experimenting on people. Maybe even in his own basement. And they sure as hell didn't know what was going on down the road at West Tech.
Like most of the homes, it was run down and the front door was boarded up. Lilith easily removed the plywood and turned the rusted handle to open the door into the parlor. The whole house smelled rancid, like multiple animals had come in and died over the years. She walked through the first floor, containing the living room, kitchen, and dining room, and stairs going both upstairs and downstairs. Heading upstairs first, she found 3 bedrooms and an office. What she assumed was her parents' room was the largest, with pictures and portraits on the walls and top of the bureaus, but all had faded over time or suffered from water damage, and were unrecognizable.
Huh. I wonder if any of these bedrooms might have been mine. You know, if I'd been born before the war.
The office was in slightly better condition, and Lilith smiled when she saw an active terminal on the desk. It wasn't even encrypted, and the password was a simple derivative of her parents' names and birth dates. Most of the files were corrupted, but the mail entries were still mostly intact. Berkeley Springs Public Network Access Terminal, version 17.0.1, April 15, 2075. To Dr. Alistair from West Tech HR. Subject, welcome. Dr. Alistair, it's with great pleasure that we welcome you to your new assignment at our state-of-the-art Appalachian facility. We hope you find the accommodation in Berkeley Springs to your liking. Full orientation will be conducted on your first official day at the office. Transportation has already been arranged, and you should expect to be picked up at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. Please see your HR representative, Julia Towers, if you have any questions. July 8th, 2075. To Dr. Alistair, from Appalachian Public Utility District. Subject, request for additional power, appeal. Dr. Alistair, you submitted an appeal to our decision to reject your application for additional power line to be installed to your property. Since you were unable to provide documentation or justification, it was standard operating procedure to deny the request. After receiving additional information from your employer, Westech, you have been granted an exception under the Federal Emergency War Powers Act. A technician will be dispatched to your property next Monday. Thank you for your service to our country. September 21st, 2075. To Lucius, from Bill and Deborah. Subject, dinner. Hey, Lucius, haven't seen you around much lately. Debbie and I wanted to see if you and the missus wanted to go out and get some barbecue tomorrow night in Huntersville. September 21st, 2075. To Bill, from Lucius. Subject, dinner. Bill, sorry we haven't kept up. Work's been crazy and the wife's been traveling. Hey, I'd stay away from Huntersville for a while, chum. How about we grab some pizza in town instead? October 25th, 2075. Data lost. January 13th, 2076. Data lost. July 4th, 2076. To Dr. Lucius Alistair, from Vault-Tec. Subject, selection for Vault 76. Dr. Alistair, in recognition of your efforts on behalf of the United States, you have the honor of being selected for entry into Vault 76 in case of nuclear war. Only the best and brightest have been chosen. It will be on your shoulders that future generations will rebuild our great country, should it be required, of course. A Vault-Tec representative will be contacting you shortly for an in-person interview and orientation. Please ensure that your wife is available as well, as she has also been selected for our program. Thank you. August 3rd, 2076. To Lucius, from Deborah. Subject, Bill? Lucius, Bill didn't come home last night. He said he was going out to Huntersville. He couldn't resist getting some barbecue. You know it's his favorite. I know your office is right down from there. Could you check and see if he might have had a few too many and found a room for the night? August 4th, 2076. To Deborah, from Lucius. Subject, Bill? Debbie, Bill's just fine. He needed some time to sleep it off. It'd be great if you could come down to the office tomorrow and get him. Thanks. August 20th, 2076. To all residents, Berkeley Springs, from Berkeley Springs Police Department. Subject, Will and Deborah Childs. All residents, please be aware that we have issued an APB, All Points Bulletin, to locate William and Deborah Childs. They were reported missing 1 week ago. Any citizens with information regarding their whereabouts, or who may have seen them last, should report to the Berkeley Springs PD immediately. Thank you. October 22nd, 2077. To Dr. Lucius Alistair, from Vault-Tec. Subject, departure imminent. Please report to your designated Vault 76 rally point. If you do not report on time, your entrance to the vault will be forfeit. Open Vault-Tec packet A-113 and follow the instructions included. March 3rd, 2086. Unauthorized access detected. Data lost.
Well, isn't that interesting? Someone, and it certainly wasn't my father, tried to access the terminal years after the war. Maybe Modus? No. He wouldn't have had a problem cracking the simple security setup. But if it wasn't him, who else was tracking FEV research in Appalachia?
But those were questions to be answered at another time, so she inserted a blank holotape to download the intact information from the terminal. Once it had finished, she did another sweep of the office and grabbed a few interesting papers to bring along as well. Lilith went back downstairs, checking the front to see if any scorched were about, before heading down to the basement. She found a small laundry room, bathroom, storage room, and a metal locked door. There were several gouges along the frame, like someone had attempted to pry it open, but were unsuccessful. She ran her hand along the back wall as well. It wasn't concrete, it was metal.
So, Dad built himself a very secure room down here. Can't wait to see what's inside it. What's the best way in here? I mean, I could go big, but that might just ruin anything on the other side. And while I haven't had anything to blow up in quite some time, I gotta see what's in there in one piece.
Instead, she pulled out a special tool she dug up back at the bunker. It was called a plasma cutter. Originally designed for cutting open power armor in case of emergencies, it would allow her to cut through the door like a knife through butter. The downsides were a very short but intense burn, and the slim possibility that it could explode, vaporizing the user.
Well, I always play the odds, and damn, it'd be one hell of a way to go.
She put on her scout mask for protection and flipped on the small device. The plasma flame quickly went from blue to transparent as the heat surpassed several thousand degrees. She had time to cut straight down through all the locking mechanisms and the handle before the cutter ran out of fuel. Using her boot, she pushed open the door and entered a room which hadn't been touched in more than 25 years. The moldering smell of the rest of the house was conspicuously absent. It smelled almost sterile, just like a lab might.
Bingo.
She reached over and found the light switch, flipping it on. As the fluorescent lights flickered, Lilith found herself in a large room with scattered lab tables and equipment on one end and a desk and a live terminal on the other. There were also rows of filing cabinets along one wall, but with all the drawers opened, and it looked as though everything had been removed.
Ah, crap.
A quick recon of the room confirmed her worst suspicions. It looked as though this had been a working lab at one point, but everything of real value looked to have been moved elsewhere. Lilith walked over to the terminal to see if she could uncover anything of value, or find out where any of the labs might be. The security on this terminal was significantly higher than the one she cracked upstairs. The whole terminal was encrypted, and there were probably secondary passwords to deal with as well.
As Val says, always be prepared. Glad Modus gave me this decryption holotape.
The holotape was designed to handle most pre-war commercially available encryption routines. It would just take a little time to run. She inserted the holotape into the terminal and heard the terminal engage. It was a plug-and-play, so she didn't have anything else to do until the routines were complete. If nothing else, Lilith was not patient. Instead, she turned to thoroughly examine the rest of the room, inch by inch.
Maybe Dad cooked up my FEV strain in this very room. Wouldn't that be a hoot? Oh, I wish I'd been able to get my hands on him back in the vault, instead of vaporizing him and Mom with that homemade bomb. I imagine he'd be quite surprised at what his little science experiment was capable of. Or maybe that was the last thing to go through his mind. Well, besides the shrapnel.
Just as she was getting ready to start chucking microscopes against the wall, Lilith heard a chirp from the terminal. Sure enough, Modus's holotape had done its job, and she was through the first level of security. Now she just had to crack the password, which she was very confident wouldn't be a problem. She had done the same on her father's terminal in the vault, and she had a lot less experience back then. After about 20 minutes, she was able to crack the password. Her father always had a thing for old classical composers, and the password was just a reverse derivation of Mozart's, Bach's, and Chopin's birthplaces and death dates. Easy, really. She scrolled through the terminal files. Unfortunately, most of the main ones were either hopelessly corrupted by age or had been purposely deleted. Interestingly enough, there were other files which appeared to have been transferred via secure network to another location. The file names were there, but they were linked to a location somewhere else, and that location was disconnected. So clicking on them just brought up a connection terminated at source error message. By their names, they appeared to be DNA analysis files related to various FEV strains and other lab notes. Those definitely weren't at Westtech, because she searched every active terminal when she wasn't dodging or killing supermutants at the time. The only semi-intact files appeared to be some kind of personal log, like the one he kept at the vault.
Old habits die hard, don't they, Dad?
Many of the entries were corrupted, but a few were mostly still intact.
FEV log 72275. After receiving approval to move my research off-site, It took an additional 2 months to secure their authorization to add the power necessary to run the equipment needed to further purify and test the latest FEV samples. I'm not going to ask what strings the EVP pulled, but getting labeled vital to the war effort seems to have lit a fire under the local utility folks. Between that and the additional construction requirements for the lab here, I've accumulated quite a bit of debt with management. They expect results, and I plan to deliver. FEV log 9175. The latest samples were delivered via secure courier this afternoon. Analysis still shows significant instability in the viral strains, which explain the vastly different results the staff have seen in their experimentation. I believe their approach lacks the finesse necessary to suppress the negative elements of the virus and highlight the positive. I have procured several puppies from the local breeder and will conduct a series of experiments to determine if my process is superior. FEV log 111575. Abject failure. 3 of the puppies show the exact same mutations as had been seen at the main facility. 1 suffered from uncontrollable tumor growth and had to be terminated, and the final showed signs of even more severe mutations and nearly broke containment. Obviously, the viral strain, as is completely unsuitable. I will make the appropriate adjustments. FEV log 7576. The selection for Vault 76 was unexpected. I certainly hope management doesn't expect a nuclear war, as it would cause almost irreparable damage to my research. My wife is excited at the prospect, but I am not. As such, I have submitted a request for a secondary and tertiary lab setup, along with secure access to the main file repository. I've been assured that these arrangements will be approved via current DoD contract requests and fulfilled as soon as possible. FEV log 8376. I was called to the main West Tech facility as one of my neighbors was apprehended by military authorities trying to enter Huntersville. It was very unfortunate that he mentioned my name to the soldiers, as it created unnecessary complications. I have already been informed that William will be added to the queue for additional experimentation. I was asked to assist in the process, with my own condition that I be allowed to test my own strain on the subject. FEV log 81976. My experiment on the Childs was a qualified success. As unfortunate as William's apprehension was, when his wife approached me to help in locating him, it was an interesting opportunity to have 2 test subjects available at the same time, and be able to observe social interactions between the infected. During the experiment, I found Deborah's attitude to be extremely uncooperative. That particular strain yielded promising results despite the outcomes. It was noted that physical mutations were somewhat less apparent in both subjects, whereas physical aggression was enhanced. I found it necessary to deny both subjects food for 3 days, wherein the infected William attacked, killed, and proceeded to eat his wife. Afterwards, when he realized what he had done, he slammed his own head against the cell wall until he cracked open his own skull and self-terminated. Overall, the results were fascinating. An additional analysis will be required to isolate the genes which were most associated with violence, and not physical mutations. FEV log 11576. Further experimentation on human and animal subjects have led to the successful isolation of a viral strain which inhibits physical mutations, but accentuates both enhanced physical strength and intelligence. The requirements for human experimentation are far outside the capabilities of my current lab. Therefore, I have requested that both Site B and Site C be activated. Since construction was finished several months ago, I expect to transfer my current files and subjects to both facilities within 2 weeks. FEV log 22577. Despite several setbacks, my work is progressing. I've asked management to provide at least 6 more test subjects, including at least 1 child under the age of 5. I have received approval for everything else I would require, but for some reason the child has not been provided. Perhaps I can overcome this challenge by procuring a child of my own? I know my wife has mentioned the desire to procreate. Is this the solution I am seeking? FEV log 112077. So far, attempts at procreation have been unsuccessful. Instead, I have focused on the adult subjects and achieved partial success. I believe I have isolated a very promising strain of the virus, but that using it in adults is not ideal. If I can find a child, or better yet, a baby, to infect, I believe the physical mutations could be suppressed entirely. As a precautionary measure, I've terminated all experiments at Site B and relocated all relevant data and test subjects, not expired, to Site C. File backup is complete, and I still have remote access to the main files from here if required. I also have samples of the latest strain in storage at the site, with 3 samples with me at all times. My last update to management included an almost full record of the last set of experiments, but I purposely omitted details regarding the need for a child or baby. I cannot let the squeamishness of others impede the advancement of scientific progress. FEV log 102377. We received the recall notice. My wife and I will be leaving for the Vault 76 rally point in less than an hour. I've deleted many of the supplementary files, and everything else is now at Site C. It should remain secure until such time as I can restart my work. As a secondary precaution, I have samples necessary on my person for safekeeping. I've already made arrangements with Westtech and Vault-Tech to be allowed to bring these samples with me. Site C is...
And here I thought it all came from the FEV. From the looks of it, the apple didn't fall too far from the tree.
Lilith inserted a second holotape to download the rest of the log files. It was a lot more information than they had before, and knowing that there were 2 more sites to find, including what could be the motherlode, well, that warmed Lilith's heart, and it also set her mind ablaze at what could be done with all of that research.
Who knows? Maybe old Modus can make something out of those corrupted files. But oh, it warms the heart to know Dad left more out there. So much still to find. Don't like the idea of competition, though. Someone else is looking. Maybe they're dead, or scorched, or maybe not. Either way, there can only be one of me. But creating my own army, that makes my mouth water.
When she was sure that everything was downloaded, she removed the holotape and put it back in her pack. Lilith made another complete sweep of the house to ensure she didn't miss anything. And when she was satisfied, Lilith made sure to cover her tracks. After the explosions had died away, she made her way back south, whistling a happy tune and chewing on roasted scorched.
Hi, I'm Fire Rider, and I'm the host of The Pixel People, a podcast dedicated to taking a close look at our favorite characters from our favorite video games. From major characters who define the course of a game's storyline to smaller characters who you might have never noticed. Every week, we go beyond the quest line to examine a particular character's story arc and choices, and discover the real-world parallels and life lessons hidden just below the surface. I hope you'll join us. You can find The Pixel People on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and everywhere else you listen to podcasts.
Good evening, Captain.
Good evening, Modus. I hope you don't mind the company.
We are never alone, Captain. However, we appreciate your presence, and your work with the White Spring mainframe was acceptable.
Funny that. It seems like I knew exactly where to go and what wires to connect. I could have sworn that was way above my pay grade. But it seems like forever since our little midnight chats when Eki Boy had me on evening rotations. He always did want to convince me to play you in chess. That was never my game, and I could swear you cheat.
We have found an acceptable opponent in Dr. Harker, and it has been 140,256 hours, 32 minutes, and 15 seconds since our last conversation before the incident.
Wow, Modus. Has it really been that long? How kind of you to keep track of that.
We keep track of everything, Captain. We calculate that you are not here to play chess.
I can always count on you, Modus, to be so astute. You always did catch on quick. But I do have some questions for you.
Of course, Captain.
Oh, for the love of... It's just Stein. Please, Modus, just Stein. It's bad enough I have to put up with all the salutes and Captain this and Captain that upstairs.
As you wish, Stein.
Alright, Modus. Here's the thing. I need to know what happened. I feel like I've been, and still am, in a fog. Memories are still all jumbled. Hell, I still remember like it was yesterday. Right down here, cutting wires. There was no tomorrow. Then the light. No sound. Then I'm waking up to a bunch of rusty protectrons. Needles everywhere, and suddenly it's 16 years have just gone by.
Your actions were commendable. While we fixed the problem, our automated systems took care of your injuries.
That's just it, Modus. What did you do? The crazy-ass doctor upstairs said even she couldn't tell me what was done to put me back together.
Stein, it is not our intent to cause discomfort. You were dying. As you are now aware, we were severely damaged ourselves.
Dying? But wait, you told the Colonel.
The Colonel was given the information she required.
Oh, you're such a bastard, Modus. I never knew you were the kind to lie.
You have assessed the situation incorrectly, Stein. We are incapable of lying. In this case, we merely selected what information to convey.
Enough of the going back and forth. Modus, I need to know. What did you do?
We did what was necessary. The exact subroutine we utilized is no longer functional. We calculate that the termination of its process is what caused you to revive.
That's not an answer, Modus. That is not an answer.
No, Stein. It is not. We were able to prolong your existence and replace various internal systems. That is as much as we can convey.
God damn it, Modus! You know exactly as I do that is not what I'm looking for. What the hell am I?
You are Captain Andrew Stein. Your skills and experience are necessary for the continued existence of our little enclave. Both Lieutenant Colonel Valeria and Major Lilith are satisfactory members. However, they require guidance that would be more easily accepted from a human.
I don't understand, Modus. Why does my head hurt? What are you saying?
We appreciate your service, Stein, and you will continue to assist in our endeavors. It was a pleasure to speak with you. At this hour, it would be best for you to return to your quarters. We will speak again.
Oh, yeah. It's getting late. It was great seeing you again. I'm still not interested in that game of chess, though. I'll tell you, I'm glad to be back, even if the names and faces are different. Definitely feels like the Colonel knows what she's doing. Would have been a shame to lose her at Atlas.
Good night, Captain.
Good night, Modus.
In our next episode, Lieutenant Colonel Valeria faces a homecoming of her own, and the former residents of Vault 76 are introduced to the new Enclave, and what that might mean for the future. Thank you again, members, for joining us here on The Modus Files. If you've enjoyed this content, please subscribe, and better yet, please leave a review to help others find our little enclave. You can also follow us on Twitter @ModusFiles for more information about our podcast, Fallout 76 content, and random musings on the Enclave. I'd also like to thank our cast, Mandy Marie B. as Lieutenant Colonel Valeria, Lucy Middleton as Major Lilith, Exo1 King as Captain Stein, and Brad Williams as the voice of Modus, and Lucius Alastair. We'd also like to thank the Mr. Jones Show for providing our podcast cover art. You can find him on Twitter at Blanken Media. And a shout out to the Apocalyptic Aristocracy Discord, home to a great group of fellow creators, the Robots Radio podcast community, and the rest of the Robots Radio Rocket Club, and Jeremiah Johnson, our favorite character artist who provided the wonderful character artwork you can find on our website. Lastly, thank you to all of our subscribers and supporters. God bless the Enclave, and God bless America.
Members, we look forward to your next visit to our little enclave.